There's something hanging in the air around Tampa Bay these past few days. Not exactly a rumor, not quite news, but the tone of the conversation has definitely shifted. It's not the kind of buzz that fades in and out either. It's the kind that starts as a whisper, turns into a talking point on the national shows, and before you know it, it just feels like something big is moving inside One Buccaneer Place. No one's announced anything. No insider's gone on record. But you can feel it, like static in the air, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might be about to make a move that completely reshapes their offensive identity. And the name floating louder and louder around town? Mike McDaniel. And if you follow the NFL even a little, you know what that name means. But before we dive into the meat of it, it's worth stepping back for a second. Tampa's still processing the end of a season that left more questions than answers. The offense, the same one that looked fresh and bold a year ago, just stalled out in 2025. It wasn't a collapse, but it was a grind. Short drives, broken rhythm, predictable play calling, a team with more than enough talent to hang with anybody, but one that somehow stayed stuck in second gear. Baker Mayfield had his flashes, those fiery moments that reminded everyone why he's still here. But behind the highlights was an offense that never found its true identity. And when a team loses its identity, everything turns into improv. That's where the real trouble starts. Josh Grizzard, the in-house experiment at OC, didn't make it past year one. One and done. That move alone told you Jason Licht and Todd Bowles were done wasting time hoping things would just work themselves out. The mission now is crystal clear. Bring in somebody who can turn raw potential into real execution. And that's where Mike McDaniel comes in. The story started quietly. A line in a report here, a whisper there. But then Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated dropped one sentence that lit up the Bay. Or maybe we should say, turned the red flag into a golden one. Breer said McDaniel could land in Tampa as offensive coordinator, maybe as soon as next week, and that changes everything. Because Mike McDaniel isn't just another name. He's one of the sharpest offensive minds the league's seen in years. The architect behind a Dolphins offense that, when it clicked, looked like something built in a lab. Motion before the snap, precision in the run game, passing concepts that made elite defenses look a step slow. That's why the idea of seeing him in Tampa is both unlikely and fascinating. We're talking about a guy who was just the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, not some out-of-work coordinator looking for a soft landing. This would be a recalibration. A sideways move on paper, but a strategic one at heart. McDaniel taking over the Bucs' offense would be like throwing a spark into a locker room that's been cold for too long. His arrival wouldn't just be tactical. It'd be emotional. And here's what folks aren't really saying out loud. Inside the building, there's a quiet fatigue with the same old formula. Bowles is respected, no doubt, but his defensive-first mentality has set the tone for 3 straight years. And the offense? It's never really had room to breathe. McDaniel would break that pattern. His hire would be nothing short of a shakeup, maybe even a small revolution, inside a system that's gotten way too comfortable playing it safe. Breer even hinted that McDaniel could one day become Todd Bowles' successor. That's where the rumor gets political. Strategic. Because the NFL's always about the layers beneath the surface. If that's really the Bucs' play, to bring in McDaniel, hand him the keys to the offense, and let him grow inside the building, we're talking about a long-term chess move, the kind that defines a franchise for years. Now, let's be clear, this is still a rumor. No contract, no leaked photo, but there are signs. And in the NFL, signs matter. People close to the staff have started to say quietly that there's a silent favorite in the OC search. And that favorite, according to multiple sources, is Mike McDaniel. The timing makes sense too. Tampa can't wait until the combine or the draft to fix this. You can't build an offensive plan in April. Every week without a coordinator puts them behind the curve. McDaniel brings exactly what this team's missing, and what Bowles, to be fair, doesn't naturally provide. A fluid, adaptive offense with a real identity. Funny thing is, this rumor says more about the current state of the Buccaneers than it does about McDaniel himself. It shows a team that feels urgency, a front office that looks at its own offensive weapons, Evans, Godwin, Rachaad White, Otton, Mayfield, and knows they're leaving yards and points on the table. The 2025 Bucs offense was a patchwork of good ideas poorly executed. Sometimes it looked close to clicking, but never for long. McDaniel, though, is obsessed with continuity. He doesn't just design plays, he builds ecosystems. And that's exactly what Tampa needs. Of course, none of this would be simple. If McDaniel does come here, he'd be one of the highest paid offensive coordinators in the league, maybe the highest. That changes the whole internal dynamic. Nobody cuts a check that big without giving real freedom in return. which means Bowles would have to give up control. And that's no small thing. He's a structure guy, always has been. Letting another coach, especially one with McDaniel's personality and vision, run half the team on his own terms would take a level of humility we haven't seen from Bowles before. But maybe he knows this is what he needs. Maybe this move keeps him employed long term. Because if the offense clicks again, the whole ship steadies. And if it doesn't, well, McDaniel could be the natural next man up. It's chess, not checkers. And in this game, the Bucs are moving one of the most valuable pieces in football. Some folks say McDaniel's open to taking a coordinator gig, just to reset his reputation and set up a smoother path back to a head coaching job down the line. After what went down in Miami, the creative brilliance mixed with behind-the-scenes tension, he knows he has to pick his next spot carefully. And Tampa? It offers something rare: talent, stability up top, and a city that loves its football without the constant noise of bigger markets. And the fit on the field just makes sense. McDaniel's style works best with quarterbacks who process fast and move well, exactly what Mayfield showed in flashes. His system thrives on timing, leverage, and matchup manipulation, which would open up the field for Evans and Godwin, taking pressure off the pocket and letting the passing game flow again. But maybe the most underrated part of all this would be the locker room vibe. Offensive guys feed off energy. And McDaniel, with his offbeat, almost quirky personality, has that magnetic spark. Picture training camp with him running the offensive meetings. The energy, the tempo, the atmosphere. Totally different from what Tampa's had lately. Those are the things you don't see in box scores, but they can flip a team from the inside out. And the fans feel it too. Even without any official word, there's this cautious optimism floating around Tampa right now. Nobody's shouting he's the guy yet. But people are listening, watching, waiting. If this rumor turns out to be real, it could be the first major domino in what's shaping up to be a wild offseason. Because nothing about Tampa right now feels settled. This team's sitting in that awkward middle ground, good enough to compete, but not good enough to convince anyone they're close to another run. McDaniel could be the hinge that changes everything. And when you step back and look at it, this isn't just about one coach. It's about Tampa Bay trying to find its offensive soul again. Since Brady left, the Bucs haven't had a real identity. They went from a veteran-heavy, old-school scheme to something modern in theory but muddled in practice. What they've missed is someone who can translate all that talent into a purpose. Maybe that's why this rumor hits different. Because even if it never happens, it shows a mindset shift. It shows that Tampa's done winging it. They're ready to invest in real offensive brains. And that's where things get exciting. Because if McDaniel says yes, it won't just change the playbook. It'll change the hierarchy, the tone, the DNA of the team. It'll put Tampa back on the map as a forward-thinking organization. And if he says no, well, the fact that they're even in this conversation says plenty. That's what nobody's saying out loud, but everybody senses. The rumor about Mike McDaniel isn't just about who's calling plays. It's about who the Buccaneers want to be. And that might be the best news of all. Because for the first time in a long while, it feels like Tampa's offense finally has a direction again. Even if it's just a rumor, for now, you can feel the wind shifting. And yeah, you can feel it in your gut.